Welcome back to Watching Business Morning here on Channels Television. Still talking about as the MPC meets today at the CBN headquarters in Abuja, awaiting their decision tomorrow. And we do know that a major consideration for the MPC is inflation. Food inflation currently at 25.25%. That's the highest in how many years? More than 10 years, I know. And I know you feel it in your pocket, and we cannot do but eat food. So we know that last week or 2 weeks ago, the president did declare a state of emergency on food security. And we've talked here on Business Morning on what this really means or what should it mean. Well, we do have some groups who say they're interested in this and they can actually contribute to it. Well, joining us to talk about this is Mr. Femi Ogunduro. He's a group managing director of Maxima Group, and he speaks for the youth and said that they can help to alleviate this inflation, food inflation. I hope so. Well, did you get the plan, the state of emergency plan by the president? Where do you fit in? Where do the youth fit into that?
I mean, to start with, thanks for having me. The declaration of state of emergency of food security is a fantastic move by the government, by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And we feel that if you look at food security generally in Nigeria or anywhere in the world, you want to look at availability of food, access to food, stability of that food, and then the utilization. But you see, the very first challenge here is that there is a disconnect between the government and the people. So if you look at the people, very quickly, let's just dissect the people. We're talking young people. Our population now is over 223 million, 223.9 million people in Nigeria at the moment, and 70% of those people are below the age of 34. Now, 25% of those people are actually under 25, 60% rather. Under 25, which means that you have a lot more of Gen Z. When we speak business, this is Business Morning, right? When we talk business, a lot of them are not. They're interested in money. They're interested in good life, education and all. But sometimes we're speaking over their heads because the government government is focusing more on the side of availability. That dimension is what the government is looking at. But a lot of young people understand the utilization of food. And you will see that, with your culinary or within the digital space. So if you really want to take insight, you get on digital. I see a lot of influencers, a lot of young people, they go to restaurant, they post, some go to,
like the
on the street.
Group of people?
I mean, very recently.
Yes,
you see, you saw the kind of support that Linda Bassi, got from there. Hilda, I mean, because Foodbay TV equally, Foodbay supported, that initiative. That is just to show you that a lot of young people love food. Millennials and Gen Z alike, they love food. But when you speak about food, or when the government is speaking about food, we're talking agriculture. So we did at Foodbay, we did a deep dive. Got on the street to speak to a couple of young people, to find out what they know. Do you like food? Yeah. Oh, yeah, I love food. What's your favorite food? Oh, yeah, they tell you, I like nkwobi, I like, suya, I like all that. But when you go to agriculture, what is agriculture to you? What they have in their minds is poverty, laborious, profession, something that is not, they don't want to be associated with. Now, how can the government bridge that gap? I think that's the question here. We feel that the first thing is two people cannot work together except they agree. Young people need to trust what the government is doing. And so the mindset and reorientation is the very first place to start. Number two, we need to involve a lot of people. There's so many young people doing a great job within the food space. On digital space, from Ife Monye, Ife's Kitchen, Hilda Bassi.
But they are dealing with the finished product. We are talking of getting it from the source or creating it, production.
Yes, but you have to. So even you on the show, maybe you tone down the use of the word agriculture Because the perception of young people when you mention agriculture is
subsistence
negative.
farming,
That's what they
farmers
see.
with
That's what they
hoes.
see. So you need to tone down on that, and let's start using words like farm to table, so that it's a bit more inclusive, and they feel, okay, why am I talking about the farm? That would make them more interested, because they are very uninterested about agriculture. That's one. Number two, the government also needs to communicate, the value chain and the opportunities in between. There's so many things that can be done. When you plant on the farm and the harvest is done, a lot happens between when the harvest is done and when it lands on our table. We don't even get to see it in the media. We don't see a lot of that in the way they would love to see it.
How would they love to see it?
It needs to be packaged well. It needs to be branded. It needs to be colorful. Gen Z, they love things that are colorful. They love things that are exciting. And we need to move away from the functionality of food.
Would it help if I think the picture you're trying to paint is obviously remove that poverty factor.
Absolutely.
And when you remove that poverty factor, then you see the fanciful tractors and equipment, even on the farm, the planters, I think they have the one that waters the water.
You have drones.
You have drones and things like that. Would it help if we took this to schools, universities, because there you were already painting the picture from the mindset, because a lot of Gen Zs are very impatient. they don't have a lot of patience. They're not like their parents who would, let me work day 1, day 2, day 31 and get a salary. And then, a lot of Gen Zs do not have that. They want to see the end from the beginning. And things like that. So do you think it will help if we took this message more to schools?
Absolutely. I mean, taking it back to school and taking it back to our homes, would go a long way in helping us.
So parents do have a responsibility.
It's a collective responsibility. I mean, if the government just declared state of emergency on food security, it means that we are involved. Everyone is involved. I mean, growing up for me, my parents had like a little garden, behind our house. So as a secondary school, boy, once I'm back from school, I go back there and I plant something.
But that is subsistence farming.
Absolutely.
I did it too, but it was subsistence farming. It was something you did with the little hoe and
so
things
when
like
you
that.
start from there, because you need to start from somewhere, you need to permit this word I want to use. The government needs to make agriculture sexy for Gen Z. Permit me.
Television.
I apologize, but it needs to be attractive. It needs to be something that they look at. And where do we need to get it right? We need to, like you mentioned, go back to our schools, go back home, use the media. We're using mainstream media, which is fantastic. The government also needs to come on digital media and get involved. Use stakeholders that are influencing to actually take some influencers back to the farm. Let us teach our children, because some of them don't even know what we have. We have a lot in Nigeria, that we can showcase, but we're not doing that. And that is one of the ways that we can, bridge this gap.
So now that the president has declared a state of emergency, we are waiting the announcement of ministers, and hopefully we should get the names before this week runs out. I think the president has until July 29th. Today is 24th.
Yeah,
so
24th.
5 days
Five
more.
days to go.
So we hope that before the end, so we can pose this responsibility to the Minister of Agriculture to say, yes, the president has declared a state of emergency, but what exactly does it mean? I mean, you can declare a state of emergency and nothing moves, nothing changes, and the Federal Executive Council sits, and then when they're having their meetings, they have, stakeholders from the agriculture, but what really does it put food on the table. So we do hope that when we get that announcement this week of the Minister of Agriculture, among others, then we can pose it to the minister to say, Now you are on board. The president has made this announcement. What do you think should be the minister's first few steps? Your perspective.
I mean, orientation. I would start from there because I think there's a lot missing right there. The government already stated that they are making seedlings available. They're making a lot of things available for, Nigerians. But then the question there is, do people trust that process? We don't. A lot of people don't. A lot of young people don't.
So that speaks to mistrust of government system.
Government system. So, I mean, whoever the minister, would be by the time the pronouncement is made, you need to earn the trust of the people. Once you do that, we also need to see, because a lot of people do so much without amplification. You also need to be able to come. And amplification is not only in the way that you feel it should be done. You have mainstream media. It's now important to have a lot of amplification done via digital means or channels.
Because that's where you have the youth.
That's where you have the youth. A lot of them have phones, phones that you and I might not even have. So a lot of young people want to see what the government is doing, and then let's have some sort of inclusion. Let's have a lot of young people be a part of that process. It would also help to find a lot of young people in the cabinet that is to be pronounced. That would help greatly, because once I see someone I can relate with, it's easier for me to go with creative ideas to them that this is how you can get it done. Another thing I think I should mention is in terms of agriculture, because when the pronouncement was made, we got that fertilizers and, seedlings, all of that will be, given to farmers. Now, how many of these farmers actually get this, maybe resources? We need to use cooperatives because our local government system has collapsed. So, in a sense. So it's important to use cooperatives so that the people that need those materials or fertilizers or seedlings, they get it as at when due.
All right. Thank you so much, Femi Ogunduro, Group Managing Director of Maxima Group. Thank you for your insight this morning. And we do know that government is listening. As the minister comes on board, his job is already cut out for him. We have to deal with this food insecurity in Nigeria.
Very important.
And
very
we do
important.
hope, you would also use your TV and your platform and communication with the youth to
to
try to communicate. You understand what
absolutely.
needs to be done to get the youth involved, because that's where the huge population of Nigeria lies.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
All right. So